No, of course you're not sunk. I mean, I think that there's a lot of options for people on one side of a relationship to, well, certainly influence themselves. And I think anytime you change anything in a system that's running, we
Mhm.
really like to tune into systems thinking here and not just cause and effect. You're altering a major node in the system that is your relationship, which is you. And if you actually are genuinely growing and changing and developing and furthering yourself, that is going to have impact on the relationship. Now, it might put stress on the relationship,
Mhm.
but it's going to have impact on the relationship. It might put even further stress than you already have because maybe you've already been growing a little bit, further than your partner in a way. And obviously it's best to grow together, but you got to do what you got to do. But it definitely will alter things. It will definitely shift things. And I think it can put stress to get your partner possibly to grow as well.
Yeah, I suspect that the worst part is that churning feeling, that
Yeah.
feeling of sort of being like stuck, right? The feeling that you're going to do all this work and they're just going to sit there and let you and nothing's ever going to
Oh,
improve.
oh no, they're not going to sit there and let you. They might oppose you,
Yeah.
right? They might actually undermine it, blame you, try to hijack the
Yeah.
process. It may not be a passive thing because unconsciously, remember your partner, as you start to grow and change, is starting to think unconsciously like, oh crap, I know how to relate to my partner in the dynamic we've been in. What happens if they grow and change and they become different? What if they don't like me anymore? What if they grow and change and they realize like I'm not willing to grow? What if they outgrow me? This is unconscious stuff, right? And that's just
Hmm.
one avenue. Or what if they try to like take over the relationship or get us to do something I don't want to do? Or it could be any one of the fears or concerns or threats
Hmm.
that your partner could face. And then they're creating drama randomly, and you don't understand why every time I want to go to this personal growth workshop on the weekends, there's an emergency at home, and I can't attend these forever. What is happening? Like you
Yeah.
start to notice the pattern. They may not even notice it, but you start to notice, oh, they're undermining or they're hostile to this growth.
Yeah.
They could be apathetic and just let you do it, not be interested. That's probably the best case scenario if they're like opposed to it.
Well, I think the worst case scenario is you pour in a ton of effort and nothing changes or it gets worse.
Yeah.
That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is, an average scenario is something does change and it finally, like you said, causes enough stress in the system that people have to make choices. They have to make decisions. They can't just let it stay the way that it has been and be sort of miserable for either party.
Yeah.
The best case scenario is that they get influenced to change as well. And now you're growing together and now you have the relationship you wanted. But there's a phrase that Wyatt Woodsmall says, which is people don't want you to change. They just learned how to manipulate you as you are.
Yeah.
And so whenever we're in a situation where we're doing growth and development, we have to, on some level, expect some pushback. We have to expect that people around us are a little threatened by whatever changes we're making, particularly if they are empowering to ourselves.
In two ways, by the way. In one, what does this mean for me and how threatening it is? But another way, even beyond that, they might stress test it. Is this real change?
Right.
I'm going to throw back the old drama unconsciously again. Start the old fight we used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to respond the same way? And they don't even know they're doing it, but
Yeah.
they're stress testing you to see if you can hang, if this truly is change or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's two fronts that happens on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and when that happens, they're in some ways they're doing you a favor. They're putting you in a laboratory to see if the change is authentic and real. And that's the only time that you truly communicate to another person that you've grown is when they throw the same old at you and you respond in an unpredictable way.
That's a good measurement.
For sure.
Okay.
I think of it as like two people in an almost choreographed dance, right? Like if two people are, let's say they're the only two people in a room that are dancing, but there's two of them, right? And so there's a sense of like, well, there's two of us, so there's safety in numbers, so it's okay that we're doing this dance. But if one person just stops and looks at the other person while they're dancing, pretty soon that the individual that's dancing will feel self-conscious and they'll stop too. And that's what you're trying to do. When you're growing and you're in a dynamic with another person, what you're trying to do is you're trying to end the same old patterns, the same old dance. And eventually, if you just refuse to engage and enter that dance with them, eventually they'll stop because they'll feel self-conscious around it. Now, what action they'll take after they stop is not necessarily, that's not necessarily under your control, but at least they'll stop being in that same dynamic with you.
Yeah.
And so there's what's interesting about this idea of like, I'm the only one that's doing any work in my relationship. when you look at it, as we've already established, you cannot control another person, but you can influence them. But I sometimes get a little suspicious by the statement to begin with. So I think what we
The
could
statement
do,
of what?
I'm the only one in the relationship that's trying. I'm the only one that's doing any work.
You don't buy it.
Well, I didn't say I don't buy it. I said I get a little suspicious,
Okay.
which means that sometimes it's empirically true and sometimes it's not. So I think what we could do is we could go through almost looking at it through multiple perspectives, this statement or the situation, and see if there's anything in a bit of a diagnostic to go, okay, well, if I'm that person that feels that way, and we might all feel that way to some extent, right? Like even in a relationship where it's built on the value of personal development, there might just be, no-go areas, sacred cows, things that the person is not willing to reevaluate. And you go, I feel like I'm in that moment, I feel like it's one-sided. I feel like I'm doing more work than they're doing, at least on this topic. And it feels like I'm doing more of the heavy lift. So regardless of what situation you find yourself in, or if you're currently not in a relationship, but you have been in the past, or you want to be one in the future, I think doing a bit of a deep dive, maybe sort of an intellectually honest deep dive, can help maybe diagnose some of the things that might be going on and anything that can go back into your control, because the other person is not in your control. Like you cannot control them. You can't make them do anything. So what in this situation might still be in your control to change, to do something about, and influence the dynamic for the better?